Imagine turning 21 grand into 14 million without selling your guitar collection or inventing the next meme coin. Sounds wild, right? Well, now picture the flip side, watching that same 21 grand melt down to a lonely $1,300, the crypto equivalent of dropping your ice cream cone on the hot asphalt. Now that kind of tension, it kept me awake last night, so I grabbed a seatbelt, and all because what I'm about to tell you, exactly why the number 10,000 XRP is splitting the community in the same way that pineapple on a pizza does. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments, of course, are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and today's video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Okay, so let's get back to the mind-bending math, right? I first stumbled onto the 10K Club myth during a late night scroll, right? Think rabbit hole meets caffeine overdose. Now, every other post kind of screamed, hold 10,000 XRP until 2040 and you'll retire on a beach shaped like a Ripple logo. Now, at $2 and some change per token, that's around, let's say, 21.5 grand ticket to the moon, right? Or potentially to the bargain bin, depending on, I guess, who is tweeting. But before we kind of swap beach towels for rocket fuel, let's just rewind a moment. 12 months ago, XRP was stuck in traffic at around 48 cents. You can fast forward to today's, $2 and something, and we're kind of looking at around a 350% surge. Now, that's the sort of kind of glow up that you usually only see in shampoo kind of commercials, right? Now, if you had tossed the price of a used iPhone at XRP last year, you'd probably already be flexing a near 4-bagger. Naturally, optimism is kind of flying around like confetti then. So prediction site Telegon crunched its crystal ball and brace yourself. It kind of painted a $160 price tag for XRP by 2040. And their worst case is $119. So the translation is then that your 10,000 tokens would transform into $1.12 million even in a kind of conservative universe. Sprinkle in Changelly's turbo bullish scenario, $1,415.83 per coin, by that very same November 2040 checkpoint, and you suddenly are staring down a potential $14.15 million payday. That is a 65,752% return. Somewhere, a calculator just short-circuited in disbelief. But you got to hold the confetti cannon. Bitwise, the tempered voice at the party, kind of warns of a 13-cent implosion if XRP fumbles its big ambitions in cross-border payments and tokenization. So their kind of doomsday math kind of turns your 10,000 coins into $1,300. It's less glamorous than a coupon clipper's rainy day fund, right? So picture launching to the moon only for gravity to yeet you into the kiddie pool instead. Ouch, right? So which storyline do we trust? To figure that out, I kind of brewed a pot of coffee strong enough to kind of wake the neighbors and did some kind of bona fide sleuthing. So first, let's talk about the institutional swagger, right? 8 companies have come out swinging, announcing that they're going to hold XRP as a treasury asset to the tune of $1 billion combined. So that's like buying, at least Tesla buying Bitcoin back in the day, except this time it's 8 Teslas crammed into just one parking lot. Plus, the ETF tsunami is rolling in. 10 spot ETFs, physical XRP in cold storage, are locked and loaded. Heavyweights like Franklin Templeton, Grayscale, and Bitwise, yep, the very same folks who dropped the 13-cent bomb, are kind of steering the ship. So ETFs, they won't guarantee liftoff then, right? But try telling that to Bitcoin, whose price practically did cartwheels when its spot ETF went live in early 2024. Now, the cynical side of me remembers that markets are about as predictable as my cat deciding whether the red laser dot is a real prey. So Ripple's ongoing tango with regulators could actually still kind of trip up the price momentum. But here is why I lean curiously optimistic, right? Since the unsettling kind of SEC settlement in mid-2024, liquidity is kind of poured back into American exchanges faster than free donuts at a developer conference. Payment corridors also lit up. In particular, the UAE to India pipeline saw volume triple within 6 months. And guess what? That's not anecdotal. On-chain metrics show average daily transactions climbing past $2 million, up from the 600K range just a year prior. So whether you kind of love or hate utility talk, that's hard data saying, hey, I'm being used, not just hoarded. Yet, holding for 15 years. Let me tell you a story that slapped me across the face with perspective. So back in 2010, I laughed at a buddy who dropped $2,000 mining Bitcoin in his dorm room. The fans were so loud that they doubled as white noise machine for the entire hallway. Now, you can fast forward to 2021. He bought a house paid in full, no mortgage, courtesy of his coins. He's no longer kind of forgotten, he'd actually forgotten an old laptop. The moral of the story here is that sometimes patience outperforms day trading heroics, but, and this is key, he only invested what he could afford to lose. Now, he wasn't yanking rent money to chase for Lambos. Now, that brings us to the big psychological hurdle then, the what if I am wrong gremlin. So imagine that you hodl 10,000 XRP, right? The price kind of crawls to maybe even $5 by 2028, and everyone is kind of popping champagne except for you, because you refused to sell before 2040. FOMO's kind of evil twin, regret, slides into your DMs, and it's kind of like passing up free pizza because you're having to save some calories for Thanksgiving's 6 months away, right? Now, my personal anecdote here, or antidote, I should say, really, is that staggered selling targets, right? If you do go for the 10K strategy, you've got to consider carving out some tranches, right? Let's say you unload 20% if it breaks $25, another 30% if it crosses $100. And let's say you left the rest ride for that kind of Jurassic kind of roller coaster. It's kind of like the investing equivalent of ordering dessert first in case dinner disappoints. Now, some of you typed, where do I even snag 10,000 XRP into Google faster than I can pronounce decentralized? And enter Blofin's crypto exchange, which we've partnered with. And here's a full disclosure for you. The Blofin link in the description, it's an affiliate link. And that supports the channel here and keeps my coffee machine living its best life. Now, they've got an onboarding bonus that basically pays your trading fees for weeks if you're smart about it. So just remember, affiliate or not, scrutinize every exchange like your future mother-in-law. Security, liquidity, withdrawal limits, the works. Nothing is ever guaranteed. And speaking of resources, if you thought of shifting, or at least the thought of shifting through on-chain data sounds like, I guess, ancient hieroglyphs and kind of to decipher them, you want to hop into our free educational Discord server, right? The link is also in the description down below. Now, we kind of nerd out, kind of have a nerd squad who live and breathe all of this kind of stuff, right? They kind of love translating blockchain gibberish, if you will, into plain English. Plus, you'll catch, occasional live trading sessions where members, try to kind of tame the wild market. Okay, let's crunch the kind of tantalizing scenarios then, right? Scenario A, the Changelly's dream. XRP hits $1,415.83. Your 10,000 XRP bag equals $14.15 million. That is a kind of conservative 4% annual withdrawal. You'd actually be pocketing roughly around $566,000 a year. And that's before any kind of staking or lending yields, right? Scenario B, right? The Telegon middle kind of range, $160 per coin. Net worth, $1.6 million, still millionaire status. Scenario C, Bitwise's kind of Doomsville, 13 cents. Right, value $1,300, which buys you a fancy gaming chair and a year's worth of noodles, maybe deluxe flavor, right? That's kind of our risk spread then. And here is where probability enters, right? Let's simplify it. Give Changelly's kind of moonshot a 10% chance, Telegon's $160 mark a 40% chance, and the bearish kind of 13 cents a 50% chance, right? And multiply outcomes by probabilities, and you kind of expect value to roughly be around $685,000 on the original $21,500 ticket. That's pretty sweet, right? But it hinges on the coin staying relevant through regulatory twists, tech upgrades, and competition from CBDCs and next-gen blockchains that we haven't even imagined yet. So utility remains king. Stellar is biting at the XRP heels, while Solana's speed demons kind of talk smack daily on Twitter. Yet Ripple's banking network keeps expanding. 20 countries added ODL corridors since 2024, right? According to the official quarterly reports anyway. Now, if you believe cross-border fees are the kind of malaria of modern finance, XRP's pitch still resonates. The ETF wave could supercharge liquidity, but remember, ETF flows can just as quickly reverse as settlement sours, right, or sentiment sours. And just look at gold's 2013 kind of tantrum for a cautionary tale. Now, here's a personal anecdote, right? I once held a microcap altcoin through a 95% drawdown, convinced that it would bounce. Spoiler, it delisted, and my coins now live in a digital graveyard somewhere between MySpace profiles and Tamagotchi batteries. Now, the pain taught me that diamond hands without due diligence are just rocks kind of rattling in an empty wallet, right? With XRP, at least you have institutional benchmarks, you have legal clarity in many jurisdictions, and ongoing dev activity. Now, that doesn't guarantee success, but it beats the kind of random vaporware. So let's address the elephant then, or rather the SEC in the room. Now, while Judge Torres's partial victory clarified secondary sales, Ripple still navigates kind of remedy negotiations that could end in eye-watering fines. Now, companies kind of adopting XRP as a treasury asset are betting that regulators won't pull a 180. And if that kind of calculus changes, corporate treasurers, they won't hesitate to hit the eject button. So track regulatory headlines like they're your Uber driver's ETA. Okay, so now the human side. Now you can actually kind of, you actually stomach, I should say, 15 years of roller coaster price action, right? Just picture 2030. XRP's kind of, lounging around maybe at 60 cents after a brutal bear market, right? Your portfolio, it kind of looks like it kind of wilted houseplant at that point. Will you hang on? And if the answer is probably not, then maybe slice the kind of position smaller or diversify across layer ones, AI chains, or even boring but steady index funds, right? Remember, money sitting in a kind of volatile asset should actually match your risk tolerance, not just your daydreams. Now, all of this talk of millions can wrap our kind of sense of scale here, right? Now, so that you can obviously stay grounded, and we do need to ground ourselves. So historically, only 3% of crypto projects from 2017's bull market still rank in the top 100 by market cap today. So survivorship bias is real. Now, XRP's longevity points in its favor, but the future house's kind of black swans, we can't predict them, right? You've got quantum computing, global recessions, legislation kind of quirks. Diversification remains the seatbelt. It's not the buzzkill. And another nuance here is tax strategy, right? Holding long term can shift gains into the kind of lower bracket depending on where you live. But policies morph, so ask any Australian investor blindsided by their kind of duty settings in 2024. You got to factor in the possibility that governments may treat crypto like tobacco, tax it until it squeals, right? And you got to consult a tax professional as well. Seriously, do it, because Uncle Sam or his regional cousins, they always get paid. Now, you might be wondering, okay, genius, are you personally stacking 10,000 XRP? And I'll be honest, I am there, right? Dollar cost averaging, has actually made me get to those kind of levels. And it's actually smaller amount over the years as I've kind of diversified a little bit with money that I can afford to lock up in other projects. Now, I'm also kind of juggling positions in bigger kind of altcoins as well, right? I've got some Bitcoin, so the OG, I've got some Ethereum, I've got Cardano, I've got a whole host. In fact, I think my portfolio is around 54 different coins. And, we've got to have other things in there. Diversification, like I say, AI-driven projects. Why not? Right? And because I refuse to put all of those avocados on one single slice of toast, if you will. Now, if XRP, of course, smashes $100, earlier than 2040, then I'm probably going to skim some profits and diversify even further. Maybe a rental property or a dividend ETF, right? Future you, of course, will thank present you for creating multiple income streams instead of relying on just one single moonshot. All right, let's flip at least to the kind of softer side of things, community, right? XRP Army, gets a pretty bad rep for hype memes, but community energy can boost retention. So let's remember Dogecoin's 2021 run. Elon tweets kind of aside, the rocket was kind of fueled by people believing in a joke altogether. So if you kind of join our Discord, you'll see healthy debates. There's no echo chamber allowed, right? We even host monthly kind of bear case nights, and where kind of someone will play devil's advocate. So we never kind of get high on our own hopium. All right, let's land this plane. Now, if you've kind of heard, well, at least you have heard all the numbers, $1 million potential versus kind of noodle budget risk, right? Now, you've heard the strategy too, right? You've got staggered selling, diversification, emotional discipline, and you've heard the resources, our free Discord for brain power, Blofin for efficient trades, and again, the affiliate link. Thank you for keeping the lights on. And professional advisors are customized guidance, all right? And you do need to get a qualified professional before you do any investing. At the end of the day, the 10,000 XRP challenge is not a guaranteed yacht ticket. It's a calculated wager that technology, regulation, and adoption will align like planets in our kind of astrology class. Now, whether you jump in kind of feet first or dip a kind of cautionary toe into the waters, make the call with clear eyes and a plan, because winging it is not a strategy. It's karaoke without knowing the lyrics. So, what's your move? Are you storing up 10,000 XRP for 2040, or does the risk make you break into a cold sweat? You can drop your war stories and peace offerings in the comments down below, join the Discord for deeper dives, and if you decide to sign up with the Blofin link, affiliate link that's in the description, and it helps the channel out massively, but only click if the platform actually fits your needs. As I said, nothing is ever guaranteed.